You can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. Let's listen to the clip that Bill mentions. This is Donald Trump announcing on Thursday that he supports federally funded or mandated, at least, IVF for everyone who wants it.
As you know, I was always for IVF right from the beginning. As soon as we heard about it, it's fertilization and it's helping women and men and families, but it's helping women able to have a baby. Some have great difficulty, and a lot of them have been very happy with the results, as you know, and what we're doing. And we're doing this because we just think it's great. And we need great children, beautiful children in our country. We actually need them. And we are going to be, under the Trump administration, we are going to be paying for that treatment. So we are paying for that treatment.
All Americans who want it?
For all Americans that get it, all Americans that need it. So we're going to be paying for that treatment, or we're going to be mandating that the insurance company pay.
Kate, what do you make of this? I understand what Trump is trying to do politically because Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have been saying things at the Democratic National Convention, including in this CNN interview, that Trump is just raring to install some kind of national abortion ban. He wants to take away contraceptives, none of which is in Trump's platform and all of which he seems to be running away from. On the other hand, it seems to me there would be a way to make his position clear and to call out those falsehoods about his intentions without proposing some kind of new nationwide entitlement, without any sort of explanation of what it's going to cost, who's going to pay for it, how this is going to work through the insurance system, if it's going to be mandated. I can only imagine that if that's mandated through insurance, that means other people's premiums are going to go up.
Right. I mean, you're reading this right as essentially just a political sop to try to blunt his liabilities on abortion with women voters. But it is ironic, I think, that you have Trump basically calling for an expansion of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, which dictated what benefits insurers had to offer, and basically suggesting using that same system to force insurers to cover IVF. Now, IVF is very expensive for couples who want it. It is sometimes covered by insurance. It's sometimes not. You do have more large employers that are starting to offer it as Americans form families at later ages and as more workers want it. But that said, what Trump is talking about doing here is either mandating it in some sense where, if your Affordable Care Act plan has to cover it or Medicaid has to cover it, it would be a huge expansion of government that run in the tens of billions of dollars. It would drive up premiums for other people. And to Bill's earlier point, it would just be gasoline on America's culture wars at this point. Most Americans support IVF being available, but looking at a poll earlier this summer, 82% of Americans said IVF was morally acceptable, but only 49% approved of the destruction of leftover embryos created in the process. That's the objection Bill was describing. And I think the idea that Trump is going to create a new federal mandate and command the consciences of people who disagree, it's terrible on the fiscal merits and further cultural damage.
Bill, we'll give you the last word here, but I take your point that these moves by Trump are unlikely to attract any pro-choicers to his side while potentially alienating pro-life voters. But I guess I read him as going for the people in the middle who have these mixed feelings on these questions, but are suspicious of Donald Trump, particularly with J.D. Vance at his side. I take him to be trying to give them some comfort more than trying to convert anybody who's really in Kamala Harris's camp on this.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would just say he's failing at it. The way to appeal to people in the middle, what the referenda on abortion should have shown us is that candidates that have a position can explain it well, do okay. But candidates that flounder, it looks like he blurted these things out without running them by anyone. I've talked to a number of pro-life leaders, and there are a lot that are very distressed. You can't appeal to middle while burning part of your base. And meanwhile, I think, as I said before, there's a very good explanation he can have for the states making these decisions, not the federal government. Kate mentioned the federal involvement in the IVF decision. And in Florida, I think probably the line should not be drawn at 6 weeks, but I would codify Roe, which is basically unlimited. So I think he has good appeal to say to people, we're not going to pay for this. We want the decision back in the hands of the American people. If you want all these things in your state, persuade your fellow citizens. Instead, he's flopping around all over the place, blurting out what he would offer. And I think Kate's right. He's inflaming the culture war, and he's really alienating a lot of pro-lifers that went to bat for him by signaling, I can take you for granted.
Thank you, Bill and Kate. Thank you all for listening. You can email us at pwpodcast@wsj.com. If you like the show, please hit that subscribe button. We'll be back next week with another edition of Potomac Watch.